Hello again, everyone. For the third week in a row, we are going to be working on a little bit of a social justice diversity. Um, there's lots of different things you might call it, but overall, it's has to do with social justice and appreciating people for who they are. And the first week we looked at making things that involve our identity of who are we, what makes us who we are. We've also read a lot about World War II and Asian Americans, depending on if that's what they'd like to be called, in Seattle and things that happened. Yesterday or last week, we focused on diversity, which is just talking about how much we bring to this world with our diversity, whether it's ethnicity, religion, gender, anything along those lines. And you made beautiful, beautiful art. It touched my heart, some of your just sentiments, your poetry, your art to show what you guys think when you think of the word diversity. Now, what's really hard about this subject, this ideas, things like that, is that diversity in this wonderful, perfect world that we wish it was, everyone would be appreciated for who they are. But unfortunately, we run into something called discrimination. And discrimination really just takes everything that we should love about diversity and turns it upside down and makes it seem like diversity is not a good thing. So, we're going to do a little bit of an activity today where we both think of what is discrimination, identify when someone is being discriminated against, and then do a little bit of question and answer to each other to really start what we call a dialogue. Um, as I've said in other videos, this is something I wish we could be sitting in a circle, doing at a class meeting, talking about, going over together. But since we're not quite able to do that, this will be the next best thing. Please remember, too, that Senora Barlobre is putting some wonderful things in Spanish about diversity and some videos about people who have historically stood up against diversity, or not against diversity, for diversity. And just, we're really working on it on all sides. So for our lesson today, I kept this Cesar Chavez quote because I think he is someone that really stood up for diversity and stood up for discrimination. And you'll understand that a little bit, stood up for diversity but against discrimination. And you will understand a little bit more of what that involves once we talk about the definition. So the quote, we need to help students and parents cherish and preserve the ethnic and cultural diversity that nourishes and strengthens this community and this nation. Cesar Chavez. Necesitamos ayudar a los estudiantes y a los padres a apreciar y preservar la diversidad étnica y cultural que nutre y fortalece a esta comunidad y a esta nación. Cesar Chavez. So our learning target today is that today we are learning what discrimination is, and we will show this by identifying discrimination and brainstorming ways to stand up against it. Our vocabulary. We can't talk about discrimination unless we talk about diversity, which is what we talked about last week. So diversity is differences. People have diversity. You all showed beautiful art, whether it showed diversity about skin color, about religions, gender, beliefs, thoughts. This diversity comes together to make us have the world we are. Discrimination is the unjust or prejudicial treatment of different categories of people or things. Unjust meaning stopping people from doing things just because of things such as race, age, or sex. In this use of the word, they're meaning gender, boys, girls, people who don't identify as either boys or girls. Discrimination is basically saying you can't do that because of a diversity you have. You can't do that because you are Hispanic. You can't do that because you are a boy. You can't do that because you're in a wheelchair. But it being something so unfair and purely being not allowing someone to do it because of something diverse they have that's part of their identity. So basically, what we want to understand today is what does it mean to to be discriminated against? Why do people discriminate? And what can we do to stand up against discrimination? So, if I came into a classroom and I said, all right, everyone, today when we go to recess, only students who are wearing blue shirts get to go to recess. And someone said, well, why? And I said, because I like the color blue, and today blue shirts get to go to recess. Is that a reason? Is that a legitimate reason as to why no one else who's not wearing a blue shirt should not go to recess? How would that make you feel if you weren't wearing a blue shirt? So just because today you chose to wear a yellow shirt, you don't get to go to recess? Well, imagine if that even happened with something that you didn't choose. If I came in the classroom and said, all right, everyone who has brown hair gets to go to recess. If you have black, yellow, any other color hair, you don't get to go to recess today. That's discrimination. I'm discriminating against. I'm saying you don't get to do this thing because of your hair color, because of your color of your shirt. It is probably one of the most upsetting things that someone can go through. And some of us may not have realized that we ever have had any discrimination against us. And some of us are sitting here thinking of so many different things that have happened in our lives that have shown discrimination against us. Now, when we ask, why do people discriminate? I will be honest, I don't know I have a reason. I know that some people discriminate because they have hate in their heart and they're angry. But I don't know if I can answer. I don't always know. But I do know that it's not okay. No matter what the reason, it doesn't make it okay. One thing you're going to be working on in your lesson or on your assignments today is on Seesaw. You'll have this lesson. And down at the bottom, number 1, you're watching my video right now of me talking. Then you're going to go down to the student template. Now, some of you are coming at me and saying, oh, it's too small, I can't read it. Up here, you can zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. So, the first one says, Michelle Oakes is thankful she beat cancer, but her medicine left her almost deaf and short for her age. Classmates at her New Hampshire high school bullied her for these things and even say she faked her illness. She responded to the mean teasing by talking about her experience. She hopes doing so will help her classmates understand her childhood cancer. So, who is being discriminated against? Who is being bullied because of something that happened to them, for their appearance, for their thoughts, for their beliefs? We know, I'm going to let you guys write it, but we can tell here that Michelle was being bullied and discriminated against because she was deaf and short for her age. Who stood up for this discrimination? Well, in this case, she stood up for herself. She talked about her experiences. Sometimes the discrimination is you standing up for yourself and you doing what you need to do. The second one here says, Abby Brommer was happy that a new restaurant in her New York town was going to hire her to work after school. But the manager changed his mind when he met her in person and saw she was an African American. Friends held signs outside the restaurant to protest. Many from the town refused to eat there, and after Abby sued the restaurant, the owner agreed to be fair when hiring workers. So now you're going to answer. Who was being discriminated against? And why? Why were they being discriminated against? And who stood up in this discrimination? I want you guys to think about that, because just because you're not being the one discriminating against anyone or being discriminated against doesn't mean you can't stand up for someone, just like we've talked about being a bystander. Last but not least, this bottom one says, when Rochelle Hamilton began high school in Northern California, students and adults bullied her for being a lesbian. They said mean things to her. They would also not let her in the girls' locker room. Rochelle's mother met with school officials for months, but nothing changed. Rochelle and her mother then turned to a group that helps protect people's rights. When the group pointed out that the school is breaking the law, the school finally agreed to make things better. Now, for this one, if this is one you're not sure of and not sure what some of these things mean, I encourage you to ask your family if you're comfortable with that. But that is one where someone is being discriminated against for an orientation that they have chosen, and who they are not chosen, an orientation of who they are, not that they have chosen. And there's still, that is a discrimination, just like skin color, just like religion, just like being short or deaf. I want you to do your best on this. I'm not asking for perfection. If nothing else, I just want you to think about it. I just want you to think about what is happening. What is happening in these situations? Why are people doing this? Finally, in the last portion of this assignment, what you're going to do is, and I'm hoping this will work, I can't guarantee this will work, but you're going to take and you're going to copy and paste this into, and this will bring you to something called discrimination, and this is called a graffiti wall. What we're going to be doing on this wall is, I've started with a question. Whoever is next will pick their own color, whatever color they want. Maybe they'll pick green, and they will answer my question. I think, I highlighted. Oh, Miss Enquest, get it together. Green there and no green there. They answer the question like, I think discrimination is, and they would answer it, whomever it is, but then they would go to the next one and answer that question or ask another question. Like maybe they would say, maybe if, for example, Monse wrote, I think discrimination is, maybe the question she would say is, why do people discriminate? And then it goes on, and maybe another student, maybe Angel, gets on this time, and he picks his own color. This time he decides like he's going to do blue. And he would answer, people discriminate because. And then he would have his own question that he would bring up. So, what can people be discriminated for? Thank you, my friends, for working hard on this and doing the best you can. I appreciate all we are doing and all this work we are working on together. Thank you.